Huawei is very dangerous.
Rarely does a country go to war with a private company.
We have met the enemy, and it is Huawei.
We're not going to do business with Huawei.
Huawei represents a national security risk.
But is this really about Huawei, or is it something bigger than that?
Picture this: a world where Google doesn't exist. No search engine at your fingertips, no Gmail in your inbox, no YouTube videos to watch, no Android powering your smartphone. A few years ago, that scenario would have seemed absolutely impossible. Today, it's not just possible, it's actually happening for 900 million people worldwide. In 2019, the United States government dropped a bombshell that would change the technology industry forever. US sanctions blocked Huawei from using Google services on their devices. Industry analysts predicted disaster. Most experts thought Huawei's smartphone business was finished. The tech giant faced a choice: surrender or fight back. They chose war. But here's where the story gets truly shocking. While the world watched and waited for Huawei to collapse, satellite images uncovered something extraordinary happening in Guanlan, Shenzhen. Huawei was secretly building a massive high-tech chip factory. This wasn't just any manufacturing facility. This was a fortress of technological independence, a bold declaration that Huawei would rewrite the rules of the global chip industry. The Guanlan facility is a sprawling complex that encompasses 3 key manufacturing units working in perfect synchronization. At the center lies Huawei's directly managed facility, dedicated to producing cutting-edge 7-nanometer chips for smartphones and AI applications. This marks a significant leap forward as the company seeks to reduce its reliance on foreign semiconductor technologies and assert its dominance in the global market. Flanking Huawei's facility are 2 strategic partners: a semiconductor tool manufacturer spun out of a Huawei lab and backed by state funds, and Huawei, a memory chip producer with deep ties to the tech giant. Together, these 3 entities form a formidable alliance, working to create domestic alternatives to technologies from industry heavyweights like NVIDIA, ASML, and TSMC. Industry analyst Sarah Thompson captured the magnitude of this moment perfectly. Huawei is on a mission to rewrite the rules of the game. They're not just building a factory, they're building a fortress of technological independence. And she was absolutely right. But Huawei's ambitions extend far beyond the walls of the Guanlan facility. In a massive show of force, the company invested a staggering $1.66 billion in a new research and development center near Shanghai. This state-of-the-art facility spans an area equivalent to 224 football fields and is set to become the epicenter of Huawei's quest for semiconductor self-sufficiency. With over 35,000 personnel expected to be employed at the Shanghai Center, Huawei is leaving no stone unturned in its pursuit of technological supremacy. The company's focus on developing advanced chip-making tools, including the elusive lithography machines, underscores its determination to break free from the shackles of foreign dependence. Dr. Li Chen, a renowned expert in semiconductor manufacturing, remarked, "Huawei is not just building chips, they're building an ecosystem. By bringing together the best minds and the most advanced technologies, they're creating a self-sustaining industry that can weather any storm." However, the path to self-sufficiency is fraught with challenges that would break most companies. The US sanctions have dealt a severe blow to Huawei's semiconductor ambitions, restricting access to critical manufacturing equipment and technologies. This has led to lower production yields for advanced chips, with the Ascend 910 AI chip produced by SMIC, using its N+2 process, falling short of the commercial viability threshold. Industry insider Michael Lee acknowledged the reality. Huawei is fighting an uphill battle, but they're not backing down. They're doubling down on their investments, their research, and their talent acquisition. They're in this for the long haul. And double down they did. While building their chip empire, Huawei simultaneously launched an even more audacious project, creating a complete replacement for Google's entire ecosystem. At the heart of this transformation is HarmonyOS 5, Huawei's homegrown operating system now running on over 900 million devices worldwide, from smartphones to TVs to cars. Unlike Android, which relies heavily on Google's framework, HarmonyOS was built from scratch to be fast, secure, and flexible. In China, where Google's services were already limited, HarmonyOS has captured an impressive 25% market share in smartphones, second only to non-Google versions of Android. This isn't just a local phenomenon. HarmonyOS is designed to work across devices seamlessly, offering an integration that even Apple hasn't fully achieved. But an operating system is only as good as its services. That's where Pedal Search comes in. Huawei's answer to Google Search. It's not just a search engine, it's a gateway to apps, news, and services tailored to local markets. Pedal Search now handles millions of queries daily across Asia, and Huawei is aggressively expanding it into Europe and Africa, targeting users looking for alternatives to Google's data-hungry algorithms. The numbers tell the story of Huawei's remarkable rise. The company's app gallery now boasts over 580 million monthly active users, still behind Google Play's 2 billion but growing rapidly. In hardware, Huawei's Mate 70 series, powered by their own Kirin 9100 chip, is outselling competitors in China. This isn't just about phones. Huawei's cloud services are expanding quickly, offering businesses an alternative to Google Cloud with competitive pricing and local data compliance. What makes this shift particularly remarkable is that Huawei built this ecosystem under extreme pressure. When U.S. sanctions cut off access to advanced chip manufacturing, most experts thought Huawei's smartphone business was finished. Instead, the company doubled down on innovation. The Kirin 9100 chip in their latest devices proves they've found ways to advance their technology despite these restrictions. In China, Huawei's smartphone sales hit 35 million units in 2024, a 40% increase year over year, while Android's growth stagnated. This isn't just a victory in terms of sales. It demonstrates that Huawei can build and sustain a Google-free ecosystem that satisfies millions of users. The app gallery's growth is fueled by strategic partnerships, like their deal with Tencent, ensuring that must-have apps like WeChat are available and optimized. Google isn't standing still, of course. The company is enhancing Android 15 with improved privacy features and doubling down on AI integration through Gemini. Google is also cutting Play Store fees for small developers to fend off rivals like Huawei. But the company faces its own challenges. Mounting regulatory pressure in Europe and growing privacy concerns among users worldwide have created openings for alternatives like Huawei. What's particularly fascinating about Huawei's rise is how quickly they've evolved from their humble beginnings. Founded in 1987 in Shenzhen as a rural sales agent for Hong Kong-based phone networks, Huawei spent its first decade largely invisible to Western consumers. By 2006, they were still primarily a B2B company providing networking infrastructure to telecom operators worldwide. This behind-the-scenes role allowed them to build expertise and scale without attracting much attention. When they finally decided to push their own branded consumer devices, they brought decades of technical knowledge and manufacturing expertise to the table. It wasn't luck that positioned Huawei to survive being cut off from Google. It was years of building deep technical capabilities across the entire technology stack. What we're witnessing isn't just a competition between two companies. It's a fundamental shift in how technology evolves globally. The era of American tech dominance is giving way to a more diverse landscape with multiple centers of innovation. Companies like Xiaomi and Samsung are also developing their own ecosystems, creating a more complex and competitive environment. Professor Wang Jing, a leading authority on China's tech industry, declared, "Huawei is not just a company. It's a symbol of China's resilience and ingenuity. They're showing the world that no matter how high the barriers, no matter how fierce the opposition, China will find a way to rise above." Indeed, Huawei's strategy extends beyond mere manufacturing capabilities. The company is fostering a comprehensive semiconductor ecosystem within China. forging collaborations with domestic firms, investing heavily in R&D, and attracting top talent from around the world. This holistic approach is a testament to Huawei's unwavering commitment to securing its place in the global semiconductor industry. Looking ahead, Huawei's ambitions are crystal clear. The company aims to have HarmonyOS on 1 billion devices by 2026. They're enhancing pedal search with AI capabilities to rival Google's knowledge graph and targeting markets like India, where Google's dominance isn't absolute. Huawei is also making significant investments in 6G research and smart city technologies, areas where Google's presence is still developing. The wild card in all this remains geopolitics. US-China tensions continue to shape the technology landscape, potentially limiting Huawei's global expansion. But even with these constraints, Huawei has proven remarkably resilient. Their success shows that the tech world is becoming less US-centric, with new ecosystems emerging that follow different rules and priorities. For consumers, this diversity means more options, potentially better privacy protections, and technologies tailored to local needs rather than Silicon Valley's vision of the future. For businesses, particularly those operating in Asia, Huawei's cloud and AI offerings are becoming increasingly compelling, with data laws favoring local providers in many regions. So, is it time to say goodbye to Google and hello to Huawei? For most users outside China, that moment hasn't arrived yet. But the fact that we can even ask that question shows how much the tech landscape has changed. The future is no longer written exclusively in Silicon Valley, and that's a development worth watching closely. What do you think? Are you ready to explore alternatives to Google's ecosystem? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the tech wars reshaping our world. Malaysia now settles oil transactions in yuan. Thailand conducts oil settlements in yuan. Saudi Arabia accepts yuan for oil purchases. The petrodollar monopoly has already fractured. Before anyone claims American exceptionalism makes this situation different, consider this historical reality. Every declining empire voiced identical assertions. The Spanish Empire declared it. The Dutch proclaimed it. The British insisted upon it. They all followed the exact same 5-stage pattern without exception. America just entered stage 4. The pattern operates through mathematics, not politics. Cold calculations, predictable trajectories, inevitable outcomes. Examine this figure, $38.4 trillion. That represents America's national debt right now, this month, December 2025. The debt expanded by $2.23 trillion in just 1 year. That calculates to $6.12 billion per day, every single day, $255 million per hour, $4.25 million per minute. The third largest line item in the entire federal budget. 13% of every dollar the government spends now goes directly to bondholders as pure interest. Here's the trap mechanism. Half of all United States debt matures by 2026. Every dollar requires refinancing at whatever interest rates exist at that moment. The average rate currently stands at 3.382%. That percentage sounds manageable until you multiply 3.382% against $38 trillion. If rates increase even 1%, that generates another $380 billion in annual interest payments every year, forever. This transcends a budget problem. This represents a system approaching terminal velocity. The pattern consists of 5 stages: fixed, chronological, unchangeable. Every reserve currency in recorded history followed this exact sequence. 0 exceptions. Once you comprehend the mechanism, you'll recognize why this time cannot deviate. Stage 1. Foundation. A nation rises with genuine economic power, not paper promises, real production, trade surpluses, accumulated gold or silver reserves, military strength protecting commerce routes. Other nations desire the currency because it represents actual value. The foundation rests on legitimate wealth creation and sound money backed by tangible output. This constitutes the earning phase. Stage 2. Ascendancy. Through war, through trade, through international agreements, that currency becomes the world's reserve. Other countries hold reserves in it. Commodities get priced in it. International debts settle in it. This creates what economists term exorbitant privilege. The reserve nation can print money and export the resulting inflation. They can borrow at rates that would financially destroy any other economy. They can run deficits indefinitely. For a limited time, it functions beautifully. The world economy grows, trade expands, everyone benefits. But here's the trap embedded in the system. The privilege transforms into temptation. The printing press becomes the solution to every political problem. Stage 3. Overextension. Once you possess the ability to print the world's money, stopping becomes politically impossible. Military spending explodes across global theaters. Social programs balloon beyond sustainability. The government borrows not for emergencies, but as permanent policy. Here's the mechanism that makes this phase inevitable. The reserve currency nation must run persistent trade deficits. Consider the logic. If the world requires dollars for international trade, America must supply those dollars continuously. The only method to supply dollars globally involves importing more than we export. Year after year, decade after decade, the trade deficit becomes structurally embedded. To finance the deficit, borrowing becomes necessary. To service the borrowing, printing becomes required. The money supply grows faster than real economic output. Purchasing power erodes. Slowly, initially. 1% inflation. 2% inflation. But the trajectory locks in permanently. Stage 4. Crisis. Eventually, mathematics catches up with policy. Foreign holders realize they're holding a melting ice cube. They diversify gradually. A central bank adds gold reserves here. A country settles bilateral trade there. The reserve share starts declining. This creates a feedback loop mechanism. As confidence drops, more holders exit positions. As more exit, confidence drops faster. The reserve nation can't stop printing because the entire system built itself on monetary expansion. Inflation accelerates. The government intervenes with controls, desperate policies, increasingly aggressive monetary tools. None of it works because the problem is mathematical. Too many currency units chasing too little real value. Stage 5. Transformation. The old currency loses reserve status, not through war declarations, not through international decree, through market forces. Countries discover alternatives. Bilateral trade bypasses the reserve currency. A new currency emerges backed by the nation with the strongest trade surplus and the will to maintain sound money, at least initially. Because here's the final piece. The new reserve currency will follow this exact same pattern. The cycle repeats because the temptation is universal. The mechanism operates like clockwork. Sound money creates trust. Trust creates reserve status. Reserve status creates privilege. Privilege creates overextension. Overextension creates debasement. Debasement destroys trust. Lost trust ends reserve status. It's powered by human nature and mathematics. Both are constants throughout history. Let me prove this pattern through 4 historical examples. Same pattern, same sequence, same outcome. August 15, 1971. President Nixon appeared on national television and announced the United States will no longer convert dollars to gold. The Bretton Woods system, which made the dollar the world's reserve currency since 1944, died that night. After World War II, the dollar was pegged to gold at $35 per ounce. Every other currency pegged to the dollar. The system worked perfectly initially. America maintained trade, surpluses, and real production capacity. The world needed dollars. Then Stage 3 arrived. The Vietnam War, the Cold War, Great Society programs, military spending exploded, social programs expanded dramatically. From 1961 to 1969, the Federal Reserve printed money to finance everything. By the late 1960s, far more dollars circulated globally than America could redeem for gold. Foreign governments, especially France under Charles de Gaulle, recognized what was happening. They started converting dollars to gold aggressively. The gold reserves at Fort Knox were bleeding out rapidly. By August 1971, only 10,000 metric tons remained. On August 13th, Nixon held an emergency meeting at Camp David with Treasury Secretary John Connally, Fed Chairman Arthur Burns, and Undersecretary Paul Volcker. They faced Stage 4 completely, a full confidence crisis. 2 days later, Nixon shut the gold window in what he called a temporary suspension, except it never reopened. The Smithsonian Agreement attempted to maintain fixed rates at devalued levels. It collapsed in 15 months. By March 1973, Bretton Woods was dead. Major currencies started floating freely. Gold was $35 per ounce in 1971. Today, it exceeds $3,000. That represents a 98% loss in the dollar's purchasing power against gold in 54 years. The reserve nation overextended, printed to finance spending, lost credibility, and killed the gold standard to maintain printing ability. Now, examine Germany from 1921 to 1923. The German mark had been sound money backed by gold until World War I. Then Stage 3 hit at lightning speed. Germany financed the war through debt, not taxes. By 1918, debt reached 156 billion marks. Then the Treaty of Versailles added 50 billion marks in reparations required in gold and raw materials. When Germany fell behind on payments, France and Belgium occupied the Ruhr Valley in January 1923, Germany's industrial heartland. The government's response was passive resistance. They ordered 2 million workers to strike, but still paid them. The only method to accomplish that was printing money massively. By early 1922, the exchange rate was 320 marks per dollar. Then Stage 4 hit with devastating force. The currency stabilized briefly, then hyperinflation exploded. Mid-year showed 765 marks per dollar. By August 1923, it reached 74,750,000 marks per dollar. November 1923 saw 4.21 trillion marks per dollar. A loaf of bread cost 160 marks at the end of 1922. By September 1923, that same loaf cost 1.5 million marks. By November, 200 billion marks. People used wheelbarrows to transport money for basic purchases. Workers received payment twice daily with breaks to spend before prices rose again. Pensioners starved. The middle class was annihilated completely. Stage 5 arrived November 15, 1923. The Reichsbank stopped monetizing debt. A new currency was introduced called the Rentenmark. One Rentenmark equaled 1 trillion old marks, backed by land, not gold. It stabilized at 4.2 Rentenmarks per dollar. But the social damage was permanent. An entire generation traumatized. Democracy destroyed. Faith in institutions shattered. Fertile ground for the extremism that followed. Go back further to 1694 in London. King Charles II had borrowed heavily from goldsmiths in 1672, then simply refused to repay. Trust in sovereign lending collapsed entirely. By the 1690s, England was fighting the 9 Years' War against France, desperate for funds. Nobody would lend after the Charles disaster. Enter William Patterson, a Scottish merchant with a revolutionary idea. Let the public lend £1.2 million to the government. In return, investors become shareholders in a joint stock company with banking privileges and note-issuing rights. The company was called the Governor and Company of the Bank of England. The government would pay 8% interest, half what goldsmiths charged. The key innovation was a national bank protected from royal seizure. £1.2 million was raised in 11 days from 1,268 investors. July 27, 1694, the Royal Charter was granted. This was Stage 1 perfection. Sound money, public subscription, clear rules, limited liability, trust through transparency, not decree. For over 2 centuries, the bank maintained stability. The British pound became the world's reserve currency after adopting the gold standard. But Britain eventually hit stages 3 and 4. World Wars I and II bled the empire dry financially. By 1944, Britain was bankrupt. Bretton Woods transferred reserve status to America. Finally, examine Rome, the template for everything that followed. The silver denarius was introduced around 211 BC at 4.5 grams of 95 to 98% silver. This represented stages 1 and 2, sound money backing the most powerful military and trade network in the ancient world. The denarius became the universal Mediterranean currency. Under Augustus, value held stable, but stage 3 began with Nero in 64 AD. After the Great Fire of Rome, Nero needed money urgently. He reduced denarius weight to 3.4 grams and dropped silver content to 90%. Every emperor afterward continued the debasement. Under Trajan, Marcus Aurelius, and Commodus, more spending required more printing. Silver content kept falling. By the Severan dynasty in the early 3rd century, coins contained less than 50% silver. Under Caracalla in 215 AD, the Antoninianus appeared, supposedly worth 2 denarii, but containing only 1.6 times the silver. By 268 AD, under Gallienus, coins weighed 2.4 grams with just 2.4% silver. Stage 4 was brutal. Inflation exploded across the empire. By 301 AD, when Diocletian issued his price edict, wine that cost 1/8 denarius at the empire's height now cost 8 debased denarii. 6,300% inflation. Trade collapsed. Barter returned. The empire fragmented. Stage 5 came with Constantine in 312 AD. The gold solidus was introduced at pure gold, 4.5 grams. This became the Byzantine foundation and stabilized for centuries. But the Western Roman Empire collapsed in 476 AD, largely from the economic chaos currency destruction created. 4 case studies spanning 2,000 years, different continents, different cultures, different technology levels, identical pattern, foundation, ascendancy, overextension, crisis, transformation. The mechanism doesn't care about language, politics, or innovation. It runs on mathematics and human nature. Both are constants. Now let's map this pattern to America stage by stage with current evidence. Stage 1 is complete. The United States emerged from World War II as the only major power with intact infrastructure, massive trade surpluses, most of the world's gold, creditor to nations, unmatched production capacity, absolute military dominance. The foundation was real economic strength. Stage 2 is complete. Bretton Woods 1944 established the dollar as global reserve, oil priced in dollars, debts denominated in dollars. For 30 years, this provided stability. America enjoyed exorbitant privilege. Stage 3 has been active for 50 years. The Nixon shock in 1971 marked the start. Once the gold peg died, printing constraints vanished. Every decade since has seen accelerating monetary expansion. National debt was $1 trillion in 1981, $5 trillion in 1996, $10 trillion in 2008, $20 trillion in 2017. Today, $38.4 trillion. Debt to GDP hit 119% in Q2 2025. It was 33% in 1980. Fiscal year 2025 showed a $1.8 trillion deficit. 2024 showed $1.85 trillion. No surplus since 2001. Military spending reached the highest levels since World War II adjusted for GDP, 900 bases across 70 countries. Federal Reserve balance sheet exploded from $900 billion in 2007 to nearly $9 trillion peak in 2022, tenfold in 15 years. M2 money supply surged from $15 trillion in March 2020 to over $21 trillion in early 2022, 40% expansion in 2 years. Stage 4 is happening now. The evidence overwhelms. Dollar share of global reserves peaked at 72% in 2001. Q2 2025 shows 56.3%, a 16-point drop in 24 years. Current trajectory puts us below 50% by 2034. Central banks are diversifying aggressively. China holds 2,233 tons of gold as of September 2025, up from 1,042 tons in 2005. Russia accumulated over 2,000 tons before sanctions limited reporting. India, Poland, Uzbekistan, and Turkey are massively increasing gold reserves. In 2024, central banks purchased 776 tons, one of the highest levels in decades. Countries are building dollar alternatives rapidly. China's CIPS now has 23 central banks connected. The digital yuan processed $2 trillion cumulative by September 2025. China-Russia trade hit $218 billion in 2024, with growing settlement in yuan and rubles. Saudi Arabia signed a $50 billion yuan currency swap with China and now accepts yuan for oil. The petrodollar monopoly is breaking. India and Russia settled